We as a society did this to our first responders and to our veterans. We require you to do abnormally horrific things in order to protect this country, and then we expect you to come home and be a goddamn choir boy. And that does not compute.
Kevin Baldwin, a retired Reconnaissance Marine, and Bruce Parkman, a retired Green Beret, are on the show this week to discuss some topics that have affected both of their lives. In this episode, we will shed some light on blast-induced traumatic brain injuries and their lasting effects on mental health, conventional versus unconventional treatments for these lasting symptoms, and leading indicators of suicide and suicidal ideation. Veteran mental health seems to be an ever-evolving topic with no clear and concise treatment, but one thing that proves to help time and time again is friendly support. This is why our mission here on the Veterans Voice podcast is to remind you all that you're not alone. As you hear through the stories of our guests each and every week, we have all struggled, we have all turned to poor outlets to cope with life, and we have all felt alone at times. But these are the reasons we need to all be there for one another within the veteran community, a community whose voice is needed in America more than ever. This is the Veterans Voice podcast. And this is a reminder that you're not alone.
USAA is proudly celebrating 100 years of serving the military community. It was a group of soldiers who launched USAA in 1922 by joining together to insure each other's vehicles when no one else would. Since then, USAA has grown to more than 13 million members strong. And through it all, one thing has remained. USAA is still serving the military community and their families. Find out more at usaa.com/100.
Kevin and Bruce, so happy to have you guys on the show. You know, totally unfortunate of why you're here, but it's incredibly important to us, incredibly important to Mount Carmel and the whole entire community that you guys are here. Shattering the silence, because we say shatter the silence, and getting these things out there and talking about them is me personally, I think, is the most effective way that we can combat suicide, is just having the conversation. So I'd like for you guys, because both of you guys were in the military, if you guys want to tell us a little bit about your military career, and then we can dive in. So again, thank you guys for coming on, and Bruce, go for it. What'd you do?
No fighting, because I know we got a Marine and a Special Forces guy.
Love Marines. Hey, I'm an honor to be with you, war fighters, combat veterans. You guys
SEALs,
are awesome.
I've been teaching SEALs how to drink, fight, and do other things for many years. Yeah.
You know, that's how the Iron Man started, by the way, was a bunch of guys saying, no, I can outdo you with this, and this. That's how it actually started.
That's
funny. In Hawaii.
I bet.
Yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
Bruce Parkman, joined the Army in 1980 when my dad told me to get the hell out of the house and join the Army, so I picked door number 2. Ended up being a grunt about 3.5 years into it. My first sergeant in 101st was a MACV-SOG vet, and he came to me with 2 pieces of paper. One was my Chapter 7 paperwork, and the other one was a Special Forces application. Wow. And so I literally got drafted into Special Forces to stay in the Army, and got out of Q course in 84. We were the first guys with the 18 series. Did almost all my time in 7th Group. Was down in Panama twice with 3rd Battalion, then went back again with the SIF. In between, I taught at SWIC. I was a Russian at the SEER compound for 2.5 years.
I could see that.
Yeah.
With that thick neck, I don't want to get hit by you.
I was a beater, man. Me and the bearded one, dude. We were relentless, bro.
Oh my God.
And then I volunteered for the conflict in El Salvador. Got picked up. Did 15 months there. 9 months with one of the OPAT position. And then the rest of my time there, because I spoke Spanish, spoke good Spanish. I ran recon schools, combat diver schools, and other courses around the country. I did 4 years team sergeant time, and then
Dang, you got 4 years?
Got 4 years, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was the happiest guy, and then there was this classified unit that kept wanting me, and I'm like, you know what? I got my 4 years. I'm not going to go be a staff weenie, so I did 2 years in D.C., and then somebody decided that with 4 Article 15s and a DUI, I'd make a great sergeant major.
That's exactly
And the command sergeant major up there was not a fan of mine. So I went to the Sergeant Major Academy in '98, and I came here to wonderful 10th Group. And just as I got there, the Kosovo conflict just kicked off, and the weenie sergeant major that this company had didn't want to go, so they offered me the job.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm not supposed to mention
Yeah, we'll
names,
cut that
but
one
he is a weenie.
I don't know. Maybe we should blast that.
And went over there, and we had a great time, man. Being a sergeant major was absolutely the pinnacle of my career.
That's
Loved
awesome.
it, man. And I appreciate you being here.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Kevin, what do you got?
Awesome background. Yeah, I served in the Marine Corps as an infantry officer, background in reconnaissance and intelligence, pre all the wars, and actually wanted to come back in after 9/11, but I had a huge date gap because what I experienced was hostile and toxic leadership, and I didn't go back and sign my fitness report after a major deployment and 5 maritime exercises, including Somalia and the Persian Gulf. But I said, I barely made it out of that. You were dealing with some of that post-Vietnam era stuff that was heavily targeted and, quite honestly, very dangerous and had some mental effects when you go through that anguish, which has an effect on the whole family unit. So after 9/11, I tried to go back, and I had a huge date gap. That wasn't going to work. I started all over with the Coast Guard and came out and finished as an 05. But it was a multiplier for my civilian career, because what I did is I stood up crisis and threat response for 2 major petrochemical companies and also oil and gas energy movement to build and mitigate threats. When you think about vulnerabilities in this country, just look at how we manage and transfer energy and raw materials, and it's right there in front of you. And I had the capabilities to go in and start up from tabletop, functional, full scale, and bring that military experience, including combat diver qualified, to be able to do that. We lost our son in 2016, who was on path to a productive military career. He was an ROTC cadet. And since then, I've been out doing speaking to ROTC and NROTC units. Taylor over here, working the technical side of this discussion, was at a presentation I gave several months ago. And I actually introduced the Mac Parkman Foundation and talked about concussions. I talked about the effect on the brain. I talked about the effect on the mental state. And I've had athletes come to me since. I had actually a water polo player say, hey, I've had 7 nose brokens and I deal with chronic migraines. I had a defenseman in hockey say, I have 3 documented concussions. I have trouble sleeping at night. Looking for help, looking for discussions. And it was a very productive conversation. The kids get it today. I think our generation, Bruce, I'm in my 60s now, we didn't call a lot of attention to emotional struggles.
No.
We did not bring it.
We still don't.
And it's a dark topic, and we need it takes courage to get help for your mental well-being. And we are on path. The work that you've done, standing up this foundation to honor your son Mac, that was introduced to a presentation with over 100 candidate cadets. They're talking about it. They're going to be using that. I want to get some more work done. Maybe at some point we can get in and talk at the National Character Leadership Symposium on suicide prevention and what we've learned on our journey and our path. Our son Eric is now a commissioned officer in the Marine Corps. He went NCO to officer. What I'm seeing now, including at his Marine Corps Basic School graduation after 7 months, 40 years after I graduated, they're talking about be humble. They're talking about have empathy. They use words like love to connect. They're dealing with mental well-being. These kids today have a lot more struggles because the pace and technology never stops for them.
It's a blessing and a curse with the emotional generation that we have, right? Because everyone's talking about their feelings, everyone's talking about this, but at least people are now, And that I was in the military for 22 years. From then until now, in the last 5 years, I will say it's definitely being more. The stigma is going away, and I don't know if it's because of the generation or it's just because of how bad it's gotten. So that. Like when I told my whole team, hey, I'm in counseling, and every day I went to counseling. I'm like, I'm going to counseling. Everybody else should go too. I'm going to counseling. Like, try to just talk about it and be open about it. So you guys being on the forefront of this, I mean, you started, what's the name of the foundation?
It's the Mac Parkman Foundation.
Okay.
It's named after my son.
Yeah, and then Kevin, you go out and public speak. Like, you guys being in the forefront of this is so powerful, especially getting in front of these young kids. Like you said, the ROTC, and it's just incredibly powerful of you guys at your guys' age. Not calling you old, but you're older than me. But you guys taking a step back and seeing that change and being a part of that change is incredibly important and very, very powerful.
Well, I'd like to comment on the generational stuff because I used to think, talking to people about it's these new kids, right? Why are they killing themselves? Why is all this stuff? And what we don't realize now, and this has resulted in several deaths at 10 Special Forces Group and other commands around the country, and it was actually just outlined in an article in the New York Times where those Navy SEALs have taken their lives, is that repeated blast exposure right now for this generation of post 9/11 soldiers never stops. So I am a Cold War guy, right? Yeah. I'm Ronnie Reagan, right? We didn't have any money. Like we dirt dive stuff. We threw baseballs instead of grenades. Like we didn't have money. So after 9/11, we always fight like we train like we fight, right? So what we've done is this generation here has seen more brain-related and gut-related, more repeated blast exposure than any generation of soldiers in the history of this country because it never ends.
Yeah.
I see Spec Ops resumes now with 8, 10, 13 tours. Well, what are they doing in between that tours? They're hitting the shoot house. They're hitting the breaching charges. So we are now just realizing, and SOCOM's taking the lead on this, but we are so far behind.
Yeah.
When you think of all the suicides and all the guys that have had to go to counseling, mental illness, that have never been properly assessed for brain damage as a result of their service. And that is huge right now.
Huge.
And it is contributing, and I think your point about it is because it's just so bad. It is. It's that bad.
Yeah. Yeah, and we always have a very open conversation about our mental health and behavior health, but and I will 100% agree with you. Like, the TBI is 100% part of that, but it's a different path to fix it because you can't talk yourself through part of your brain not working.
You can't drug it either.
Yeah. So it's a whole nother path that has to be opened up and realized. And it's great. I mean, we have TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation, ketamine, hyperbaric. We do have these things that are now becoming available, but TRICARE's not getting on board with it yet. VA's starting. The VA, they're slow rolling. We had Sam in here, another EOD guy, and he has a behavioral health clinic up in Denver, and he's working with the VA right now. And it's those three modalities: TMS and ketamine and hyperbaric.
It's a good start.
Yep. So TRICARE will pay for TMS, which is really nice. So most of the time they pay enough to where you can throw in the other modalities, which is really nice. But that hyperbaric is just, it's doing wonders. It's doing, the first time I got in one, man, I got out and I was like, I came in here and did a show and he was like, man, you're on it today. And I was like, I feel so clear. Like, and that was just one time for an hour in that thing. So yeah, sorry.
No. I think it's one of the things that I came to. So I volunteer at ayahuasca retreats for veterans, and I have never ever. And I've used ketamine. I had a mental health breakdown 2 years ago where I was literally in the corner of my bed sucking my thumb. And what they told me after I finally went back to the VA. So I want you to look at my brain. I got shot in the face during shooting training here at Fort Carson, which was kind of funny because every medic wanted to fix the sergeant major. They're all fighting the fucking shit. I'm bleeding all over the place. All I want to know, who's a effing idiot that shot me, right? I was just freaking out, right? So, I played military rugby. I was the first sergeant major on the All-Army team. I played All-Army rugby for years. I've had so many concussions. I've almost died 8 times in the military, right? I mean, I've had parachute malfunction, run-ins. It's, whatever, right? So they finally listened to me. And they looked at my brain and they go, dude, your brain's a mess, and they gave me a bunch of disability, right, which I wasn't looking for. I was looking and saying, look, if this was caused by my military service, this needs to be fixed by the military. And right now, to your point, I've done ketamine. These plant medicines and other psychedelic things are from the point of regrowing the brain. So when we deal with suicidal ideation, okay, we're dealing with, abnormal thoughts, abnormal patterns that are usually emanating from a damaged brain or severe psychological trauma. Okay. And what we're finding out now is that the reason that our suicide rate has not changed, and in fact it's increasing, is because our approach to mental health has not changed in 20 years.
Yeah.
It's, here's a drug, you have a symptom, here's a drug for that, here's a bag of drugs, and let's go see some therapy. But when we start talking about the jobs that we have all done as infantrymen, breachers, artillerymen, now tankers, all EOD guys, the blast exposure has damaged our brain. It's caused vast amounts of neuroinflammation that over time becomes toxic, starts eating at the critical structures of the brain. But we're not treating that. And so what you're talking about, sir, is the largest gap in treatment right now for our veterans that's not being addressed. TRICARE might be looking at it, and that's great. I'm literally writing legislation in Florida to make any modality for any veteran available at the cost to the government, because we have to do something. What we've been doing for 20 years obviously isn't just not working.
Yeah.
And for addiction and treatment. I mean, we have countries, Russia, Germany, Australia, all over the world that use naltrexone as a implant, which shuts down the receptors for somebody that's addicted to opioids, somebody who's addicted to alcohol. There's no longer a craving. We, through the VA, can do it with injects, but that delivery system is obviously obsolete. We're still using an implant that's opioid-based.
Yeah.
That's how you're sitting there looking at this thing going, I'm connected to the SAFE project. Admiral Winfield, 4-star admiral on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Sandy, he lost his son Jonathan to opioid addiction. Here he had him in 6 months treatment, the best resources in the world in Bethesda, drops him back off. 2 days later, he's gone. He got heroin with fentanyl.
Jeez.
And if we have countries that are using naltrexone implants, and yet we haven't caught up because of the whole web with Big Pharma and VA and whatnot, try to get through that thing. So what do you got? You got homeless people on the streets that have trauma, that in that mental illness as a result of trauma. I wonder how many of those are veterans. But we got to take best practices around the world and saying this is what we need to use to help our veterans from a pharma standpoint, to include treating addiction and mental illness.
Yeah. Because they're all it's all a circle, not everybody out there that has a mental health issue is addicted to things, but I'd say that it's over half, if not more. And then the TBI, it's just a circle that people are just going to be trapped in unless they get the proper help.
Exactly, Paul. And a great read on the subject of traumatic brain injuries as a result of sports and chronic. Our son Jack was wrestling at a high level, judo before that for 5 years, and as I mentioned, I can see from just the video of Mac Parkman that the behaviors are similar. When we got introduced with a text, I said, that smirk, that look down, there's so many similarities. And, I got the book, Why Maddie Ran. Maddie Holleran was a two-sport All-American out of Bergen County. She took her life as a first-year freshman at University of Penn. Jim Holleran reached out after we lost Jack, and we talked about Madison Holleran, the book that was written by Kate Fagan of ESPN. The similarities were all there. They're super high performers, zero tolerance for failure. She probably had some issues with chronic injuries because of the athletics that she did, but she also struggled immensely with depression, anxiety, probably as a side effect from the impact to the brain, and she was heavily self-medicating. We know our son was self-medicating heavily on energy drinks and alcohol, and he was a Corvette in an ice storm going 100 miles an hour, and it was after the Ranger Challenge. He was the only freshman in the event in ROTC, and he was a team lead. He took his life at grades when he saw midterms. I want to mention a book, Operator Syndrome, and it's a great read on the effects of sleep deprivation from sleep apnea. It's a great read on the effects of addiction, alcohol primarily, but traumatic brain injury has a good piece in here for families trying to understand what's going on with the veteran or children maybe that are struggling from the effects of concussions, injuries to the brain. It's written by Dr. Chris Frew, Operator Syndrome. Highly recommend it.
Yeah. It actually kind of breaks down that PTS into everything, right? Because Operator Syndrome is a form of PTSD, but it's the product of, like I said, no sleep, from sleep apnea, nightmares, whatever it may be, TBI, an addiction, and then sprinkle in that anxiety and depression. Just even if like I have depression runs in my family, it's really bad in my family, so I already had it before I even joined the military. And then you throw a TBI, sprinkle a little TBI on there, and it's crazy how those three things can just absolutely destroy an absolute beast of a person.
How imperative sleep is. How imperative sleep. Did Mac have sleep issues?
Now that I look back, yeah. I mean, I remember a couple of days before he passed, he came up and his eyes were red. My wife's like, I think he's using drugs. I'm like, Mac, are you using drugs? He goes, no, Dad. And I always believed my son, man. My son didn't know how to lie, man. But, you know, at the same time, yeah, he was heavily sleep revived. I think that contributed that day, because I was the last person to see him alive, to his decision to go. And he just knew his life was hell. He's dealing with sleepless nights, schizophrenia, severe thoughts of burning, killing. You know, like this is what schizophrenia is. And schizophrenia has been associated with prefrontal damage, prefrontal cortex damage, and demyelination for 40 years. Yet, when people are schizophrenic, the first thing they do is give them drugs. They don't look at his brain. Yeah. And a lot of things that you just mentioned, Paul, you know, from TBI to anxiety and depression, a lot of them have a biological cause. And so there's doctors, like I just interviewed Dr. Bronin today, Dr. Mark Gordon. They do these lab tests that can look at, you know, endocrinological and pituitary related brain chemicals that are down, that when those chemicals are, you know, brought back, you know, supplemented, dude, the improvement in mental health from the biological side is enormous. And when you reduce the neuroinflammation that is caused by RBE and stuff like that, but we're not doing that right now.
No.
You go to the NICO, you're going to get a SPECT scan, you're going to get all kinds of therapy, and then these guys are on their own. And then when they PCS, they ETS, they go back to Nebraska and Oklahoma. There's no NICOs there, right? We don't have a scalable model right now to address this issue. And you guys, I didn't know that you're going to put up, but you've hit the head. There are treatment modalities that, you know, that we know can improve brain plasticity, can improve brain regeneration, brain repair, and none of them are available to our veterans. None.
I will say there is definitely more of a hunger for the psychedelics through DOD, TRICARE, in the VA right now than there is THC.
THC is not going to fix that.
No.
It's another form of medication.
It is definitely another form of medication.
It gives you anxiety. Who wants to? Believe me, you lose a kid, you try it, man.
Yeah.
I was on that stuff, and I think it gave me not a lot of fun.
But I mean, yeah. Anybody who's listened to the podcast with Sam Peterson on here, I mean, the guy is just a genius when it comes to this stuff and actually what it does. And me and him have had a lot of conversations, but it's just the science behind the psychedelics, whether it's chemically based or it's plant-based or it's lab-based, it still creates the same thing. Obviously, I'm more of a plant-based myself type person, but whatever's helping is helping. Ketamine, everything. It expands that neuroplasticity in your brain. It actually rejuvenates dead tissue in your brain, just like hyperbaric. Hyperbaric forces that oxygen into like a clown balloon, pushes blood back into those vessels, those veins in your head, or not veins, arteries. There we go.
Vasculature.
Who's the medic here? I know we got a medic here.
So it is actually helping, and yeah, I don't know how far we are away from the VA and TRICARE to finally get on board, because there's so much red tape involved with it. But I have seen that there is an appetite for it now, which is phenomenal.
I have watched kids on ayahuasca right now, and you know and I am very, very acutely aware of the benefits of that plant medicine, and what it's done for veterans that are at their last door. I mean, guys that are snorting heroin have tried to take their lives multiple times. Have abused their kids, abused their wives. Women that are dealing with not just the trauma that you mentioned about the depression in your family. We have no idea how many of us as type A guys played football in high school and brought our own problems into this, right? But these plant medicines are are representing, even the psychedelics as a whole, along with all the electronic modalities. We just got to make them available. Man.
Yeah,
The time for doing this. You have to do something when nothing is working, and right now nothing's working for our guys. Out here in the civilian world, it's not working either. So.
Our other foundation that we got ketamine approved for active duty. Top secret clearance, doesn't matter.
Good for you, dude.
So I've already probably put 10 people through ketamine treatments, and I mean, we have some guys that are like, yeah, it helped, and then we have other guys. And I had one of my guys came home that night, and he was like, that's the first night I came home and wasn't craving a drink. He's like, that's the first night I've been drinking 5-6 years. And then we're also big into non-standard care. Vets, we've partnered with a group called VETS. It's Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions.
The SEALs guys, yeah.
I don't know if it's it is.
Yeah, it's his wife.
Casey's a SEAL, yeah, and then Lori Camper.
Yeah, we're in contact with her now.
So we pay for 5 guys a year to go down there, and it's. I've only had probably 2 people come back from there going, it didn't help, but one of those guys was blasted drunk on the plane on the way down there and blasted drunk on the plane on the way back.
If you don't prep, that stuff's not going to help.
Yeah, he just wants to drink himself to death, and that's a tough one. But Stanford is behind this, vets. Stanford's doing all of their studies, and they're pushing out paper after paper after paper, and they're one of the biggest ones is why DOD and why the government is actually starting to get on board with it. Is vets is kind of like, they're not the first one to do it, obviously, because the first people to do it thousands of years ago. But they're the lead in providing statistics, the studies for it, and it's just phenomenal. I mean, I've had guys come back from that completely different. I mean, one of the guys, he said he came home, walked in the front door, and then within 15 minutes, his wife was like, I haven't seen this man in 20 years.
Wow. I do not doubt it, man.
Yeah.
I do not doubt it. I had a call with one of my friends who's a very well-respected Navy SEAL, and I was telling him about, the ayahuasca experiences that I've been through. And he goes, bro, I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to tell you right to your face. I have seen guys that were on the edge of eating a 9mm go down there, and they came back so profoundly changed, as a human being. And we were both crying. He said it saved their lives because he knew a couple of the guys that were in that New York Times story. And so, getting the data, getting the papers, and then pushing that out to, we're working with the State Department of VA to go, no, we'll support this 100%. How much money do you need?
Yeah.
Because, we got homeless guys. We got, once you leave the military, there's nothing out there. So we're vetting, different modalities right now to make recommendations, negotiating prices, stuff like that. And we hope to get this approved next cycle so that we can start this as a pilot program. The support in Congress is huge.
It is.
It's growing. It's just that, it's got to, you got to be outside. We got to get outside the box, man. And it should be covered. Absolutely. These guys, I know people. I know one guy right now. He's $70,000 into fixing his brain, buying HBOT, going to treatments, going this, just doing anything so he can be the guy that he left. He was when he joined the military.
One of the things that the kids, when I speak at these ROTC and NROTC units, and 2 months ago at the Air Force Academy Prep School, is the dangers of stimulants, to include energy drinks, alcohol, high nicotine products, caffeinated. If you think about, stimulants are accelerants to anxiety and depression. They screw up your sleep. And people with anxiety and depression, you got to get that conversation. You got to break through early on. And one of the things that I introduced them to is a personal health inventory. I went through, as a veteran volunteer, the taking charge of my life and health. And I actually had some real breakthroughs with veterans, just to sit down and do a personal health inventory. What keeps you up at night? What's your intake of sugars, caffeine, alcohol, other products? What's your mission, aspiration, and purpose? And really build goals around that. We always start off with a mindful moment, clear our heads, do a little meditation, but that personal health inventory. This is a holistic approach looking at saying self-empowerment. What's your purpose? Getting together and sharing things. that PHI, personal health inventory, I'm introducing that and broadening the audience to people that aren't in the military yet, because what it does, if you sit down and have that conversation, I wish I could do that with Jack today and saying, what keeps you up at night? Just have him fill it out. Some things probably would have stood out of there. We had a full-blown addict. It wasn't until she could change her environment, her surroundings, that she could get treated, because she just kept falling right back into the craving because her environment was toxic. As a family unit, us moving out here 2 years ago, I've seen such an improvement on my wife's mental well-being because we kept having triggers. You moved out of here to Tampa after losing your son after he jumped off pulpit rock. Changing your environment, your surroundings, that's one of the arenas that we get into when I facilitate these courses as a veteran volunteer. Also on the other side of holistic, the value of endorphin, serotonin, dopamine. Laughter. You guys were laughing because your brothers in arms, your combat, your heroes, and the connection and talking about facilities and the upgrades over the years. And it was just, it's beautiful to see that connection. I actually had a wrestler soak for 10 minutes in a portable ice pod. Kid's a beast. He's all American.
That's a long time.
That's a long time.
No, I had him.
I'm checking out.
But it was hilarious. It was hilarious. You were there, Taylor.
Yep.
The kid gets out, and I said, no, we're not done yet. But I was talking about releasing dopamine. And then I had a couple of ball players, one act out that was mentally broken, and I talked about empathy and connecting, but endorphins through exercises, doing the right thing, staying away from the bad actors, how dangerous. I find out, steroids, and a great resource, Taylor Hooten Foundation. Taylor was a superstar athlete in baseball. He was actually encouraged to get on performance enhancement, to get a D1 scholarship by the environment around him. His brother Don stood up. It's the Center of Excellence for Major League Baseball and the dangers of performance enhancement drug, Taylor Hooten Foundation. Stimulants are accelerants to anxiety and depression. Those struggling with emotional struggles, you're not alone. It takes courage and strength to get help for your mental well-being.
I'm a huge advocate for the non-standard care. But when people call me and say, hey, I want to go do ayahuasca, hey, I want to go do DMT, my first question is, who's your counselor? Because if they say, I don't have one, I say, no. I'm not going to just give you drugs.
Right.
Because the holistic piece of it is so important also. That purpose, that of waking up every day. I can go and send you and scrape your brain, with some of these drugs. It's just a reset. Bam. You're like, but if you go back to the same environment, you go back to the same crappy situation you're in, you're just gonna put crap right back in that blank slate, and it all goes away.
Part of that, what I've seen from the ayahuasca perspective is that number one, you just can't go take it. You got to clean yourself up.
You got to do the work.
These guys and girls kind of want it. And I think maybe they go back to the same crappy situation, but with a new perspective that helps them a little bit.
The medicine gives you exactly what you need.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta, But to your point, you got to try and at least get your act together, or at least have a plan when you go there, and you can ask the mother what your intentions are. You get all through that stuff and wrestle and vomit all over the place, whatever you got to do. But it's a trip. But when we talked a little bit earlier about suicidal ideation, and since my son left me, I deal with a lot of parents, a lot of parents, and what I have noticed over time, and in the military suicides, the few that I've been aware of, is that there's no red flags. When these guys are ready. And we're talking about impulsivity here. Yeah. Impulsivity is a very, very key part of this.
Very key.
And that's why, when you talk about the stigma, I think nowadays guys will say, yeah, I'm hurting. I'm mentally hurting. I'm this. But they will not tell you they're thinking about taking they're thinking about taking their life. And that's where, the hope and, by if they're hurting, we can get them treatment that'll get them off that suicidal ideation. Because what we know is, from most of these people, when they get to that point, if they're unsuccessful the first time, they're just going to keep trying until we fix the problem, which is exactly what you're doing, Paul, is addressing if there is a physiological component that's causing or part of that mental illness. By fixing that, we can save their lives, because then that ideation goes away, and that impulsivity goes away, and that is. But, I don't know, when people call suicidal hotlines, even they're not even aware of what RHI and RBE is. They don't even know how to ask the questions. Right now, I don't know if you guys heard of traumatic encephalopathy syndrome, TES. This was validated in 2019. There are 4 simple questions you can ask anybody that would indicate that the probability of a brain-related cognitive, behavioral, or psychological disorder is in place. And that is, have you ever had exposure through contact sports in the military to an extensive amount of blast or head impacts? Do you have a mental illness? Is it progressing? If the answer to all 3 of those is yes, and the 4th one is, to your point, are you predisposed in any genetic or other way to mental illness? Mm-hmm. If that's a no, then we have a problem. Those questions are not asked in any care setting today.
Colorado Computer Support. Imagine never having to worry about your information systems ever again. Colorado Computer Support, the exclusive Veterans Voice technology partner meeting all of our computing needs. Colorado Computer Support is veteran-owned. They're your team for innovative, collaborative IT services and solutions to enhance and support your Colorado business. When you need IT services to keep your business going, make sure the Colorado Computer Support team is on your team. Call 719-355-2440. To learn more, that's 719-355-2440.
The Veterans Voice is sponsored in part by Optum and is produced in the Optum Podcast Studio. Optum and Mountain View Medical Group offer 15 clinics throughout the Pikes Peak region. Their primary and specialty care doctors provide quality, patient-centered care backed by Optum's industry-leading health services and technology. They're dedicated to helping our community live healthier while keeping care affordable. Visit optum.com/Colorado to learn more and schedule your appointment today.
So frustrating. My first appointment with my primary care for the VA was a 20-minute phone call, and she tried to prescribe me 13 drugs.
God.
Only
That's
13.
a stigma.
I got off the phone. I mean, at the end of the phone call, I go, "You don't know me.
Yeah.
You don't know where I've come from. You didn't ask me any questions about my career. You didn't ask me anything, and you just try to prescribe me a bunch of drugs. I don't want them. Like, I have my own PCM. I'm only coming here just to say I get help by the VA."
That was the reputation where we came from. Previously, we lived in southeast Wisconsin.
That's horrible, man.
There were psychotherapists, prescribing drugs for severe bipolar and schizophrenia on the telephone. I mean, we had heard that, and I said to our son one time, I pulled him over. I said, "I understand that you're having panic attacks and they're getting worse." When he was doing wrestling and running trails with an assault vest, which was all year round, it really wasn't much of a problem because, he's endorphins, he was meditating, he was doing a holistic approach. But my stigma was, hey, it's going to take you at every opportunity because you're going to be peeing rainbows. Mm-hmm. Shame on me. I own that. Well, and then when our son Eric was enlisting in the Marine Corps before, because he went and enlisted, the officer in the reserves enlisted, he told him he was doing some treatment medically and also getting counseling. Well, they were holding back. And so I wrote a note, went in and talked to him, hey, really professional, no worries. But that stigma, that's around that, people like you and me on this path, raising awareness on this dark, tough topic are helping remove that stigma.
Yeah.
What I will say is this generation coming up, they're all on board with it.
They are.
Missy Franklin spoke at the National Character Leadership Symposium, talked about her issues with anxiety, depression, and eating disorders. She's one of the most decorated athletes in Olympic history, and she's also had some bad days, but she's using her platform to get out. That was the one that all the cadets were engaged around. Cool. These kids today, this is an issue because older guys like us are saying, look what we lost and look at what we missed. In our case, there was some signs and signals. Mm-hmm. There was signs and signals. There was behavior changes when he went off to college because he was heavily self-medicated, heavily caffeinated, alcohol, and he was smoking for the first time. So he had all three, nicotine, caffeine, and alcohol, which he wasn't using before to those levels, to my awareness. Mm-hmm. And then he would indicate one thing to my wife, and he would say, he's angry and sad all the time with me. I got a 300 in the morning, a 300 in the afternoon on these fitness tests. It's a beautiful sunny day. And then the ideation was nonverbal. He gave me an irregular look with the same paracord he hung himself with like a week later. Mm. Those three things, The most important thing is I didn't trust my gut. Every instinct said he's struggling. I didn't trust my gut. The night he took his life, the night he crossed over and ascended into heaven, which I saw and felt that experience, that conversation only he and I had before he left. He was 3 hours away, but I was there through the Holy Spirit. I know he crossed over, and I know where he is, and I know I'll see him again, but not yet. But there were behaviors, there were some things that he had indicated, behavior changes, conflicting communications, and a nonverbal ideation. I didn't trust my gut because I had my own issues that I never worked off of from toxic emotions that were buried.
You know, I've never said this before, but I did not know my son was struggling. And I would tell anybody that's listening to this podcast is that one of the most significant indications that an individual is struggling and could be dealing with suicide is what's called apathy. And apathy is very hard to recognize, like when your son's getting ready to join the Army and they're turning 17 and they're a little bit more distant and they're not so much interested in things. It's like, well, he's growing up. And, you know, apathy can be so many things. That was the one side we had. But I remember in the last 6 or 9 months, there was just a couple times I was like, man, I wonder if that boy's sleeping. I wonder if he's okay. I'm like, I don't want to go barging on him. He's 17. He's probably beaten. Well, he's probably, doing what 17-year-olds do. You know, and I don't want to be that guy. You know, I'm just gonna check in on him. And I always asked him. I said, dude, you all right? Yeah, Dad, I'm all right. You know, he hit it, man. He hit it so well, like we all do. You know, we all would, because when you love people like you love your teammates, when you love people like your family, the last thing you want to do is hurt them. And they take it all the way to the end. So getting into, maybe there's a code word we can come up with, pineapple or something to say, hey man, I'm all the way there. Because because the thing is, as soon as you say you're suicidal, bro, they lock you up in this room, they give you all these drugs, and they're not looking for the problem, which could be this. It could be the noggin. And so that don't help. Now they get out. They've got that other stigma because, hey, I tried to kill myself. Now they can't get over that. So it's like even admitting it right now is going to cause more pain than it's worth. So, yeah, there's a lot of issues with this that, and then, like we were talked earlier, man, I mean, what these guys struggle with before they take their lives is, I know what I know my son struggled with. The gun case was open. I have no idea what that means now because I never kept guns and bullets, the same, But, when he came up to me, he said, Dad, I'm going to football practice. And I was like, all right. We lived right on the other side of Pulpit Rock. And I said, well, all right. And I gave him a hug and I did everything. Every time I was close to my son, I kissed him. Kissed him, man. In the morning, I kissed him. At night, I said, give me some cheek. And I gave him some cheek because he was taller than me, big, handsome kid. I said, make a decision. He said, I will, Dad. And this, I just want people to understand, when you want to take your life, this is what my son did, because you're just not going to stop. My son went to football practice. He managed to change in his clothes. He dropped his kid off at the football field right over. We used to practice at UCCS, Diamond Field. He disappeared. He took his truck. He drove to the parking lot right at the bottom of Pulpit Rock. He walked 45 minutes up that rock because he had a tracking app on his phone. He got to the top. He made a quick video, posted it on Snapchat, and then took 39 steps in 7.2 seconds and ran off that rock. Jeez. He had 45 minutes knowing that he was going to go.
Wow.
He didn't reach out. He didn't talk to anybody. Never told a soul that he was dealing with this. And his last video, and I'll play it for any time, was I've been suffering with depression for 3 years and schizophrenia, and I'm done. And then he got happy. He goes, I'm done. He's going home.
Fight or flight.
He's like, I'm done.
For those in that state of mind, for those in that dark state and contemplate it, recognize the damage to your family in the aftermath. I mean, what it does. I'm lucky to be here at the 1-year anniversary. I was in a dark spot. I'm lucky I'm still married. About 50% is the figures I've heard, marriages are unsuccessful, keeping the family unit together.
Yeah.
The damage, suicide is forever. If you're struggling with emotional challenges, you are not alone. Get help. It takes courage and strength to get help for your mental well-being. Bruce, how's your family doing?
Oh, dude, man, we're rocking, man. I mean, it's you know, the point, you know, I would like to add to that is that, you know, the issue is that a lot of the issues that contribute to suicidal ideation can now be treated. When my son left me 3.5 years ago, there was no such thing as traumatic encephalopathy syndrome. There was no such thing as HBOT and ketamine and ayahuasca and ibogaine and all these things. I mean, this is the momentum that's changing right now because of our focus, because of your focus, Paul, and you too, Tyler, on suicide. And, you know, when people do say, you said, you know, but suicide is very selfish. And
I wanted to bring that up, that conversation we had earlier. I don't know if you were recording it or not.
Yeah, and I
said that, and I've always felt this way, and Bruce, I appreciate your candor and your honesty with that. But I said, you know, I thought suicide's the most selfish thing you could possibly do.
And I thought the same way until I realized what my son was dealing with, and I did not want him to suffer no more. I probably, if it was legal, probably would have helped him because I did not know that there was ayahuasca and supplementation and all these other things. Now I would have had hope. But in my ignorance, just knowing that the guy, the boy I loved more than anything in the world, wanted to leave me. And if I knew anybody hurt him, they're going down. But if it was nothing I could do, I just wanted him to be at peace. And that's where he was going. He was going home. Like, I want to see him again. And I don't blame him. I actually commend him because he was fighting Satan. He was being told every night to kill, maim, to burn, to destroy. And he wasn't going to do it. And he fought it for years until he couldn't fight it anymore. Wow. And that's what takes these kids to this point. In our veteran population, when they are impacted and they are suffering, you don't take your life because it's a joy. And I'll tell you, all these people out there, if you think ketamine and ayahuasca and all these are recreational drugs, you are wrong, bro. You work. It is no fun at all. No, but they can help you. Tough. They can help you, man. They can bring you back from a point that you never thought you could get back. My son couldn't get back. He didn't know how to get back. He didn't know how to ask for help. And I couldn't, even back then, I couldn't have helped him back. He probably would have just spiraled. And I'd have smoked a bag of dope with him a day to keep him around, man, honestly. Yeah. But that's, but you should think about now that there are treatments, there are ways to get back to your family. And I'm seeing this every time I volunteer. Guys coming back to their families that were gone, man. Like, you know, and God, the hope
and
that it
start
gives
the
me.
conversation.
Yeah.
Trust your gut. For those around you, if you sense somebody struggling, don't deny it. Don't deny it. There'll be denial at first.
Oh yeah.
But trust your gut and start the conversation. You know, I've learned that for every thought, there's an equivalent physical, psychological, and emotional response. And we as people have 2,000 thoughts a day. Well, if you're living through trauma, if you're living with constant fear, constant shame, fight or flight pain, you can't concentrate. You can't focus. You can't enjoy things. You're living in a state of constant fear, and that will eat you alive. Start the conversation. If you sense somebody around you is struggling, open it up. Not a text. It's one-on-one. Open it up.
Yeah.
Break through that. Start the conversation.
And you know how you do it? How are you doing?
Listen.
How are you doing? Are you in a dark spot right now? Do you need help? Just talk. Say, I've said I'd rather lose a friendship than lose a friend. Because, your friend might get mad at you for accusing them of being suicidal, but you know what? It might save their life in the end. So have the conversation, shatter the silence. Like, it is so important that people just get out there and talk. We're starting to send people to suicide preventionists certified courses. So now we're getting more people out there.
I just talked to a veteran 10 minutes before we started this pod, maybe 15, and I could see he was in a bad spot. And he's super quiet. I told him, he asked me what I was here for. I said a podcast starting in 20 minutes. So it was around, And he lost his son 2 years to the date coming up the day after Christmas. And I said, hey,
God.
I'm sure your son, Anthony was his name, the veteran's name was Shane, knew you loved him. He's at peace now. You will see him again, but not yet. But he was broken. And he said, you could just see that in the aftermath that he's going through. It's still raw and fresh, a tremendous amount of horror and pain and evil hours. But it's like an epidemic out there.
Oh, yeah.
For those in that spot and feeling it, get help.
And to the survivors, too, we got to talk about them, too. It's like, when I just said, hey, how you doing? How's your family? We're rocking. But we're rocking because we have a purpose. And when somebody leaves your life, whether it's a hole on an A-team, whether it's a hole in the family, the family has to rebound, or they're going to, this is, I hate to say it now because I'm 3.5 years into this journey. It does get better, but you have to find a purpose. You have to find, as long as I'm talking about my boy, he's not dead. As long as I remember him, he's not dead. It's
his sacrifice is saving countless lives now because of you.
But I've turned that into it, and you don't have no idea how many parents. Like I had a parent cancel on the podcast tonight. It's just, man, it's so hard, and maybe it's because I'm an Army guy. Maybe it's because we're Army guys, Kevin, that we're able to take this and just do something with it, because we are innately, I think, created as leaders to take care of people.
We're service. We know leadership's a full contact sport. Sorry to interrupt you, Sergeant Major, but when we continue to serve and we honor, and that I call it a MAP, mission, aspiration, and purpose, and just as imperative as a support system, to the point where a counselor was watching me hug Shane down the lobby, and he was crying. Shane was, and we said a little prayer, and I went up and spoke to behavior health and said, let's do a post-suicide group. I'll facilitate it. Because that purpose, that meaningful purpose and support network is what keeps me going. And if I can help other veterans and honor our son and help get them through the evil hours and do some holistic tools and do some things and to honor the family member that they lost, it helps me honor our son, Jack.
One thing I want to tell both of you guys is, working with a nonprofit organization. I've been doing nonprofit stuff for just over 5 years now.
Good for you.
Was running the foundation for a little while. Then I was the chief of programs. And I was medically separated out of the military for PTSD. I had an anxiety attack one day that almost took my life. I almost had a heart attack. It was so bad because I have high blood pressure, and it was just goes like this.
They suck, bro.
Oh my gosh! I was like, "What is this feeling? Like, why can I not control my emotions?"
Dude,
chest lock.
Been
chest
there,
lock.
bro.
Well, I held all my anxiety in my chest, so every time I had an anxiety attack, it was just feeling like I pulled it, and as soon as I hit the gate, as soon as I pulled it on base, it started. And that was my trigger. I was like, I can't go to work anymore. Like
Operator syndrome.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, 100%. It's 100%. So I literally pulled into the PA on the way in over there at Robinson Clinic, and she hooks me up with the EKG, and she's like, "You're having a heart attack. Like you need to go to the ER right now." And I was like, "That doesn't help my blood pressure." But so they went and spent the day in the hospital. Ended up being a panic attack. But the doctor was like, "If you wouldn't have came in here and we would have got you, or you wouldn't have got calmed down, you would have potentially thrown yourself into an actual heart attack and died." Wow. And I was like, "Whew." Then med board. Time to get out of the Army because this is no longer for me. But point of me saying that is, so working with the foundation, and I had someone come up to me one time. They're like, "Man, take care of yourself because you're around darkness constantly." And then this year in January, I had another pretty bad breakdown because I stopped seeing counseling because I was so busy with the foundation and constantly on the phone. I was having 5-6 phone calls a day with just helping guys with transition, freaking out because they're about to get out of the military, helping guys with mental health issues and trying to get them help. And I realized that I was trying to make or heal my problems by helping everybody else's problems while ignoring all my problems. And so that's one thing I want you guys to understand is, yes, this is a very purposeful job. Yes, going out and helping people and saving lives. I wish there was 1 billion of us. I wish everybody in this world had the same mentality of us. But it can catch up to you. That purpose becomes a drug also at some point in time. And you have to keep a lid on that, because it can tear you apart, because it almost tore me apart again. And luckily I'm, very open about my mental health. So I told the team, I was like, I got to take a step back. And I took about a month or so away from the foundation. So
Good for you.
That's what I just want to make sure that you guys understand that.
Copy.
Yeah, that it's living in this dark world is incredibly purposeful, incredibly helpful, but incredibly dangerous also.
That's I got 2 daughters. Right, one's a nurse. a lawyer here in town that works with abused kids and pulls them out.
Oof.
And I got another one that's a nurse practitioner, psych medicine, that works on getting kids off drugs that these doctors throw them on all the time. And I'm always worried about the impact of dealing with this dark side of society on them. And to your point, Paul, when I deal with families and stuff, it is hard. It's hard because I feel their pain. Mm-hmm. I know it. But, and you got to take that. And that's why, dude, I still work out like a monster, bro. I don't drink anymore, which is, if you knew me in my Sergeant Major days, people was like, nah, that ain't Sergeant Major Parkman, man. I could lead those guys in any drinking challenge in this town. But, it's but you do have to take care of yourself. And I think that anybody that's in a purposeful place, especially in these veteran populations where there's just so much pain. I don't know where this pain comes from, man. I think a lot of it's attributable to I am absolutely convinced, the nonstop nature, what we've done to you guys. Not me. I retired in early 01, okay? I was getting ready to become a mall cop at Walmart because there were no jobs back then for veterans, okay? What we have done to you guys has never been done to a generation of soldiers in the history of this country. These repetitive and non-stop exposure to psychological trauma, physical trauma, mental trauma, brain trauma has, and I'm going to get on a soapbox here for a little bit because I get pissed off when I talk about this.
Please do.
That's
what we're here for.
An unbelievable price that we have yet to recognize and pay the bill for. And that is what keeps me going. I have already talked to the highest people at USSOCOM about this. They are on board. I am talking to congressmen. They are on board. And we have to not only deal with you guys that have served, we got people that are serving, and then we've got people that are dead. We have suicides. We have families that have gotten little support because they were line of duty when they were tankers, artillerymen. We have to go back and review. We have such a bill, a check to write for this.
Yeah. We
have 1 million incarcerated veterans right now. None of them have ever been assessed for brain-related trauma to the mental illness that could have caused them. The guy that shot the 18 guys up in Maine. Dude, a lot of people don't know. He was the hand grenade instructor at West Point for 10 years. Wow. Range safety officers take more explosive trauma than anybody on 18. They're around it all the time. All right? The 7th group guy that shot up the bar, I don't know his background, but we are not looking at, we're saying, oh my God, they're guys that snapped, the girls that snapped, right? And screwed around their husband, whatever it is, right? But we don't look at what did they do for a living? Mm-hmm. And what has that done to them? Yeah. And their only crime was they joined the military to serve their country. They didn't commit no crime. And we treat them like criminals all the time. Mm-hmm. And when you're mentally ill, hey, man, here's some drugs. Get on the street. If you're having problems, hey, man, you're a soldier. Get on it, man. Suck it up, right? And then as a soldier, it's like, I'm not going to talk about myself because I don't want to put other people first, right? And that's who we are. But we have yet to address this as an issue with our veteran population. And we keep complaining about the damn suicide rate. We keep complaining about the mental health rate. But we don't complain about every time we need to get these guys and girls to go downrange one more time. Just one more time, man. 10 times, 13 times, and when is the last time? We have never done this. And the exposure is continuous because you're at war or training for, at war or training for, at war or training for. And there is a price to pay that we have not done yet. And I am absolutely just so incensed that I have to talk about this when so many leaders have been out there. We've been in 2 completely unnecessary wars, if you ask me, as a retired, sergeant major. And I said this right there. I did both the invasions, man. I saw kids out there that couldn't even spell combat. As a matter of fact, because I was the only guy that ever seen combat, I spent my days training these guys to go over the berm. They didn't even know how to get on a helicopter. Didn't know how to do a convoy. Didn't know how to clear a building so that they could at least survive. And don't even go down that rabbit hole. But anyways, to your point, You're doing an amazing job with this podcast. And I still think that people need to get loud. They need to get loud. If you know of anybody that is not here anymore, family members that have suffered because somebody's not here, and they had a job that required an enormous amount of blast exposure, or they served 8, 9, 10 times the war, and they're homeless. This is not their fault. You guys did not do anything wrong, and we blame you. We as a society did this to our first responders and to our veterans. We require you to do abnormally horrific things in order to protect this country, and then we expect you to come home and be a goddamn choir boy. And that does not compute.
Doesn't happen. Yeah.
Does not compute. And then go back and do it all over again, Bo. And when you're done, oh my God, you're acting out. Here's your bad conduct discharge. Here's your less than honorable discharge. Get out. And you don't get any veterans benefits. But just get out because you're a soldier. Oh, but you were great in combat. Here's your CIB. Here's all your badges, man. Great job, but get the hell out. You don't treat people like that, man.
Well, the kids get it. That's what I'll share with you, just to say that the ones coming up are speaking and bringing a lot more attention to what mental well-being, talking about anxiety to the athletes coming out.
It's 20 years too late, bro.
I know. No.
We got 20 years of
my first
pain.
experience, my dad coached
pain to
football
look
for
at.
27 years, and I used to see the ball players coming back from Vietnam, and I didn't even recognize them. They looked like they were 40-year-olds in 19-year-old bodies. I was like, what the hell happened to that guy? No smile, no jovial, frightening to be around, just dealing with that. And as a society, we have come, the Vietnam generation, the ones that are getting benefits today for mental health related issues, are because we did nothing to that Vietnam generation. The first time I turned around and at the Vietnam Memorial and I saw amputees, I saw a number of veterans crying, hugging and kissing each other, it broke my heart to see that the system just tossed them out. I do want to speak on the point of mental well-being. That is obtainable. I'm looking at a piece right now from Florent Groberg, who is a Medal of Honor recipient, and he's an executive. You know him?
He's
with
a good
Boeing.
man, dude.
Well,
Met
listen
him
to
a
that.
couple-
This is some
drank beer with
simple
him once,
things
man.
that are attainable, okay? Here's what he's talking about, what he'll do every day about releasing emotions. Do not suppress toxic emotions. I will talk to my wife or family or friends or pets or colleagues. Dogs are great therapy partners. About my concerns and anxieties, I've learned that keeping things to myself is a recipe for disaster. 2, I have made a plan, purpose, to exercise each day leading up to Memorial Day. To stay healthy mentally, I need to keep my body moving and catch fresh air, endorphins, natural. I will welcome negative feelings, but I will not allow them to control me. I take negative feelings and use them as momentum to move forward. Lastly, I will smile. Dopamine. He's releasing dopamine when he smiles, likes laughter. And when I can no longer smile, I find a moment to be alone and breathe. Find that one positive in life and focus on it. Some call it a type of meditation. I call it flow time. Good piece. He's talking about endorphin, serotonin, dopamine.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised you know him, Bruce.
So a little while back, we had a buddy of mine in here. His name's Chris Lee. He's been on the podcast quite a few times. Just he was my medic. For some reason, I hold all my medics very closely.
Smart.
Hedging my bets.
Yeah.
Helps them relax or something.
But he was my medic back in 2016 in Germany, and just really good friends. But he got out. He had some mental health issues. He almost took his life. But he hit bottom, and it changed his life. And now he's doing life coaching. But he just wrote a book. His book just got released. 150-page book just about his system and how he works. And
Love to have him on our podcast, man. That'd be great. I'd love an introduction. Sounds like a good guy.
Oh, he's phenomenal. And just a really, really smart guy. Crazy background, too, but I won't go down that rabbit hole. But one of the things we got to talking about is, well, the first thing he says in his book, and the first thing he does with his people is say, who do you want to be? And they're like, oh, I want to be a CDO. No, but like, who do you want to be? And he has them spell out in I am sentences. I am this person. In the future, I want to be this person, like a better dad, in better shape. Okay, so then he takes those 5. I can't remember what the 5 were, but and then he makes a plan to be that person. And then all your other life dreams will kind of start getting into focus when you have that purpose and you understand who you are. which I think is incredibly powerful. And then it's doing a 5-month plan and a 5-year plan. Because he said a quote from, I think it was Bill Gates, that people incredibly overestimate what you can get done in 1 month, but they completely underestimate what you can get done in 5 years.
Good point.
So just building out that plan, and I'm going to get to your point of the whole holistic health and everything, but we started talking with veterans. When they get out of the military, our life is so structured. And you think that we're the super structured people. Well, when I finally got out, I was like, I don't want any damn structure. I was like, I want to do whatever the hell I want to do and whenever I want to do it. I took about a year off. And
Good for you.
it was not incredibly healthy, but it was good for some things, bad for other things. But when he came in here and started talking about that, I was like, oh, man, I got to put that structure back in my life.
Here's my risk assessment.
Yeah, I was like, I really got to put that structure back in because I know how to do it. I'm really good at it. I did it for 22 years. I'm probably one of the best. But I completely took it out, and my mental health has gone like this. It's been a roller coaster ride. And so, I'm getting back into things and getting back into working out and getting back into, a bedtime and reading and doing all these things that, like, okay, I really need to pay attention to. And again, I took even more of a step away from the foundation lately and just really make sure that I'm okay. And the best way to do that is to have a schedule, because then you know what you're missing. You know what you're, oh, I don't want to do that today. Oh, I cannot read my book that I want to read tonight. So that is also part of like what when we facilitate help for people and asking guys about the ayahuasca and things like that is like, what's your plan?
Okay.
What's your continuation of care? Because there has to be some sort of structure. There has to be some sort of mental health, counseling. There has to be things set in place, because without that structure, it makes it so much easier just to slip back into old habits.
You're right.
I just had a long conversation with my counselor, who Kevin knows well. We were operators in the military, just in the military in general. Think about going out on a mission. You knew the state of each of your guns, which was on fire, which was on safe, how many rounds were in each one. You knew your radio was charged and your spare battery was in the third zipper on the right side of your pack. You knew your helmet was here. You had everything in place, everything. You'd spend hours doing it. And I started to describe to him like certain areas of my life today that I feel like I'm struggling in. And he asked me, like, what systems do you have in place to make sure they're going as planned? So I have some areas in my life that are going well. Those areas I have systems in place. The other areas I'm just kind of winging it.
Chaos.
And like, maybe there are things like as easy as like working out. But like, am I winging my workouts, or do I need to be planning them out every day? I'm doing this. Like we just get used to this. Like I was telling you the other day, like we're not going out on missions anymore, but we still need those systems in place to feel like we're accomplishing a mission.
It's a checks and balances. What's that?
I said you are going out on missions. It's just every day is a mission for you to keep, to keep going, man. To find purpose, keep that purpose, keep motivated. So important.
Another thing I'm finding too is with Mount Carmel and helping people, starting to realize, especially Green Berets, especially combat arms people, A-type personalities, I deal with a lot more childhood drama.
Oh, for sure.
Than I thought.
Dude.
And I think that honestly, that's one of the draws to combat arms and being an operator is childhood trauma. People with these backgrounds that have built up this resiliency already as a kid, saying, "Oh, I can go do that," or "I want to prove something because I've been through hell and I want to prove something." Mm-hmm. Or it's just like I said, that they've already built up this, built up this crazy resilience to life, and you're like, "Oh, I can be better and go on and do bigger things." So I'm dealing with a lot of the counselors that I talk to. Obviously, they don't share names and things like that, but they're like, yeah, there's a lot of childhood trauma when it comes to combat arms and special operators.
Yeah, special operations come from divorced households, lost parents. Like they have a knack or a need to prove is usually where that starts. And then you join the military and now you're never good enough because there's always a guy better, or, you know, whatever. So you just live this whole life of never feeling good enough, even though you're top tier in the military. It's a double-edged sword for sure.
Thank God we got the wolves for the fight.
Well, we all feel like we're imposters, the imposter syndrome anyways. So, like,
I mean, that's a great point, man. And you know, and this is just one thing I've noticed on these ayahuasca retreats that I'll volunteer for and help is these guys, they've been through the talk therapy, they've been through the, you know, what do they call it, CBT, they've been through every equine therapy, they've been through drugs, they've been through alcohol, but until they purge that stuff out of their system and that ayahuasca stuff, they feel like that's when they say, wow, I think I got rid of something.
Yeah.
You know. And I think that's where, to your point, they might not have a plan yet. But if they're dedicated enough to clean up their lives and get off SSRIs for 2 weeks, they give that thing a chance. And childhood trauma is a big part. I mean, I you know, during the integration, I listen to these stories. I'm like, and I tell my story, and like, I got no Cinderella. I got a Cinderella story, man. It was bad, but you know but that I got rid of it. I finally got rid of it, and I think these kids. I mean, there's I don't know why. I don't even know how it works. I look at it like, hey, God made these plants, and somehow He told this one dude out of 80,000 plants in the Amazon jungle, if you take these two and boil it, you're come find me. Right?
We're gonna have a conversation.
We're gonna have a conversation, dude. But you know, to your point, it is amazing how much trauma has happened to these kids. Where do these people come from? I mean, dude. I mean. Because I know myself as a dad, and I just want to make this point, is that one of the things I learned from the folks that are there is they keep talking about breaking the chains. And that childhood abuse has been going on in that bloodline for centuries, bro.
That's all they know.
Right? It's all they know, right? The drinking. I look at my wife's bloodline, my bloodline, the drinking, the sexual abuse, the molestation have all been passed down. And they kept saying, you gotta break the cycle. And I think that is so key when we look at our lives and how we become better human beings, you know, more loving, more caring, you know, less confrontational, like we can talk to people and compromise no matter where we are in the political scale, the religious scale, the melanin scale, who cares, right? That's relevant when we come down to our core as human beings. And I really have a lot of hope that I don't, you know, there's still a lot of that going on, but it was so, man, it's like all over the place now. And then dealing with it's a monster, man. But,
No, it really is. Like but you guys are out there
Yeah,
fighting.
I found that with the military. Our son graduated from Marine Corps Basic School 40 years after I did, and my roommate came down that I lived with 40 years ago. He's a 2-term state senator. He did it for free up in New Hampshire, business leader, retired as an 05. Five of his brothers all served as Marine officers. His dad took his life battling the Korean War conflict, or Korean War.
that was a tough war.
Yeah,
too.
it was a 2nd Marine Division, Frozen Chosen, and he works out of a building that his dad was at. But so there's obviously generational service connection, but those with the service, they want to be. It's the support system, and when I see veterans struggling, they lose that connection and that purpose. But what I found is people that have gone in, whether it was our son at basic training, 5 years ago, and now Marine Corps Basic School after 7 months, it seems like there's the generational connection to service, that commitment to be part of something bigger, but it's also that support system. And veterans who don't have that continued support system, that's when they're going to really struggle. Yeah. So in addition to purpose, which I think we focused heavily on, purpose and support system are both imperative, just like we're supporting each other. Just like the veteran I was talking to several hours ago in the lobby that lost his son less than 2 years ago, still raw and fresh, a support system, sharing those emotions, that connection. Just like purpose, that's also imperative.
Yeah, that's what Mount Carmel's trying to do here, and that's what you guys are trying to do here. We're creating this, right? We're creating exactly what we're talking about. It's not the military, because we're all past that. We're all in our next chapter of our life, but we're still we still have all the qualities of what we had back then, and now we have an opportunity to actually give back and create these support systems that are just so important. But the biggest thing is getting out there and telling people about it. Gentlemen, thank you guys so much. So sorry for your loss, but you guys are turning something good into this, and you guys are making a huge impact on the world, on your families, on the community. So greatly appreciate you guys coming in here, being open and honest about this, because that's what it takes.
Thank you.
And Boss, I just want to say thank you to both of you, man, for taking your challenges and turning it into this amazing opportunity. What you're doing for the veterans is so needed. The brotherhood we had in the military, I miss it. I mean, I've been out 23 years, and I still dream about being in the Army like 3 nights a week. Right. I miss it so much. It was the part of my life I'll never get back. But you're helping to recreate that brotherly love that we all had, that we all need, sisterly love as well for our sister veterans. Mm-hmm. And so hats off to you guys, man. Mm-hmm. Give yourself a pat on the back, man. We're very hard on ourselves. We never give ourselves a break, and I learned this the hard way. So give yourself both a pat on the back. You're doing amazing work.
Yeah, real quick, plug any resources you got. So your website for the foundation, and if you have any upcoming speaking events, anything you guys got coming up.
Nothing scheduled. Go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, man, we got so much going on. We got a new free concussion app going out that we have been working on. So it's finally an app that parents could go to for information about the risks of concussions. We have the second edition of our book coming out. And we're just out there. We got the podcast Broken Brains. Please feel free to tune in as we talk. We're interviewing the most amazing people on repeated head impacts and repeated blast exposures. We're writing legislation now in the state of Florida to make these treatments available. So we're out there, man. We're out there moving, cool. And it's the support that you guys are bringing, and we're here for you. We're here for you. You need a network. We're gonna be putting a lot of things together in the next year. And we want you to be part of it. So, yeah, really appreciate it. You go to the Mac Parkman Foundation, www.mpfact.com. The book that I wrote, we give away for free. It's the only book on RHI for parents, 88 pages, written in 5th grade English. So anybody, 2 nights with a bag of popcorn or 6-pack of beer, you'll be more educated on contact sports and trauma than anybody you'll meet and any doctor or nurse you'll meet. So please get the book. Please read it. Take care of our children. We all want them around.
Awesome. That's God's work, Bruce. Yeah. Awesome.
And awesome. We'll put all those links and put your guys' links for your speaking on the posts for this when this comes out. So all the listeners out there, when you're listening to this, look at the links at the end, click on it, get a free book out of it. And thank everyone for listening. Please open your ears to this. And if you're struggling, talk about it.
Reach out, man. Please.
Reach out. Talk about it.
There's hope.
Because, like we always say, you're not alone.